Hey everyone! In today's video we're going to be trying out a product that I've been curious about for years. It's called Amazing Remelt and it's made by Alumilite. And one thing that has kept me from trying out this product is the price. I got it at Hobby Lobby and it was $35 for 16 ounces and it seemed kind of pricey. I appreciate that it's reusable, but I don't know what to expect from it. I don't know if it's going to perform like a silicone mold would. We're going to find out. We're going to make some molds. I'm going to pour some resin into the molds off camera and we'll pop them out and just see how it performs. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. So one thing about it that I'm not crazy about is that you can't use it for applications that exceed the melting temperature, which is 130 degrees Fahrenheit. And that just means I couldn't use it for melt and pour soap making, which is something I'm pretty into because of the temperatures. So yeah, it has limitations because of that. So let's go ahead and just check out the container, and then inside of it, there's some directions and we'll go from there. All right, remelt and report over and over again. Complete instructions inside. Moldputty.com, Alumilite, 16 ounces. Okay, Amazing Remelt is a non-toxic food grade, 1 part reusable mold making material. Remelt is ideal for low or room temperature applications that do not exceed melting temperature. One of the reviews I saw said that you don't want to use resin that heats up really quickly, that cures super quickly, because it can exceed that temperature and it can melt down the material. So that's just something to know. All right, so that's what it looks like. As far as what the stuff is made of, I looked online. It is essentially a gelatin and glycerin mix. So that's most likely what makes it food safe. It feels a lot like a gummy bear. It's not sticky and it's not tacky, anything like that. It's pretty firm. Yeah, I guess I would mainly compare it to a gummy. I kind of want to take a bite out of it. I mean, I won't, but I kind of want to. So we're going to check out the directions that came with it. And then I also printed out some more information online, which is just more in-depth directions. So we'll just go over it. We'll start with this. Okay, step 1, prepare your item to be molded. Inspect the item for dirt, so on and so forth. Okay, fasten your item to a piece of non-porous wood or plastic using hot melt or super glue. Oh, super glue, huh? If you plan to use a recycled food container, simply fasten the item to the bottom of the container. What we're going to be doing is the same thing that I do for all of my molds. This is a piece of sulfur-free clay. I rolled it out with a clay roller. I'll leave the links for all of this stuff in the description. I'm not going to get super in detail. If you would like to know how I make my molds, I have a tutorial called How I Make My Clear Silicone Molds. You can check that out and it'll get you up to speed. But I have some clay, I have some cutters that are going to get squeezed into the clay, and then I have some pretty random little pieces I'm going to try out. I'm going to make a mold of this flower just so I could see how the detail is. Here is another flower, just to see if the mold material catches all the detail, and then how it's going to be when I pour resin in and pop it out of a said mold, how it holds up. I have this little door that has all kinds of details going on. I also have, it's just a smooth sphere kind of piece that I made with a light bulb. I took a little light bulb and made a mold of that and then poured some resin into the mold, and this was the end result. So we're going to give that a shot on something that's perfectly smooth. And then I'm actually going to make a mold of a silicone mold that I already have. And one of the reasons is one of my subscribers or viewers, I don't know if they're subscribers, but one of my viewers hit me up recently, and she does stop motion videos, and she wanted to make a silicone baby doll foot out of and use another silicone foot as the masterpiece. So she wanted to make a silicone mold from a piece of silicone, and we weren't really sure how to go about it, and the idea of this came up. Before I did this, before I gave it a shot, I actually tried to take a silicone mold and make a mold with it using different mold material. This is tapped plastic silicone and this is Mold Star. And it worked. I totally managed to pull them apart, make a mold of one and pull them apart. Some of it did stick though. It wasn't like a clean release. The mold did tear a little bit. So while yes, it did work, I think it could be better. So yeah, we're taking a silicone mold and we're gonna make a piece with that and just see what happens. Okay, so back to the directions. Apply mold release. I don't have any, so we're not going to be doing this. I've just never used mold release, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't mess everything up. Honestly, for the silicone on silicone, like making a mold from a silicone piece, there's most likely like a rubber on rubber type of like mold release that you can use. I have never tried anything like that, but I'm assuming it exists, but I digress. Yeah, I don't have mold release. We're not using it. I guess that's really that. Okay, to release resin, epoxy, and casting materials, use a thin coat of petroleum jelly. Yeah, see, I don't want to be rubbing petroleum jelly all over stuff. I don't have any. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. Okay, heating Amazing Remelt. The chart below provides you with an estimate for the amount of time for the various container sizes to melt the Amazing Remelt. Okay, so we have the 1.25. So I watched a video that Alumilite put out about this, and what they were doing was they were putting the entire container into the microwave and heating all of it up and stirring all of it up. I don't really want to do that. One of the reviews even showed that it ended up melting the bottom, like the container melted. It's not, I wouldn't call it like a particularly thick plastic when all is said and done. And I would rather not put the entire container in there, especially if I don't need all of that material. While Amazing Remelt is packaged in microwave safe containers, glass Pyrex measuring cups are more suitable for repeated use. Yes, I would love to do that. I would love to just cut some up and put it in a Pyrex thing. For newer higher powered microwaves, it may be necessary to reduce the power level if it becomes evident that it's being heated too quickly. Okay, causing boiling around the perimeter. All right, so yeah, we'll just cut some up. We're gonna put it in a Pyrex cup and then I'm gonna watch it, and I'm just gonna, every 30 seconds, I'm gonna pop open the microwave to see how it's doing and just really keep an eye on it. With this type of stuff, I'm not gonna wanna walk away and do something else, you know, just be hyper focused on the microwave while this is happening. When stirring in between heating cycles, stir slowly to minimize adding additional bubbles. Once remelt has become completely liquid, slowly pour into one corner of the mold box, allowing material to naturally flow around the originals. One of the complaints I saw was the bubbles, that's a big problem, that they show up in the finished molds, and so yeah, we're gonna see what happens with that. All right, so that covered some of the stuff, and there is definitely a few things that were in the other paperwork that I would like to cover. I won't go over all of it. Okay, Amazing Remelt will leak out of any small cracks in your mold box. I mean, that's typical mold stuff. If your mold box does leak, try using clay, tape, or air. All right, so yeah, mold stuff, usual mold stuff. It says the mold release is required. Yeah, we're gonna see what happens. I didn't really read the directions beforehand, so we're just gonna see what happens. What I usually do and what I will be doing is resin castings. Casting resins often generate heat as they cure. The larger the mass of the casting resin, the more heat. Okay. Yeah, too much heat and this mold will melt or can melt, and it can also just lose fine details. That was also a complaint I saw. Okay, casting items over 1/4 inch thick can generate enough heat to remelt or deform the molds. So it's just temperamental, touchy stuff, it sounds like. So this is interesting to me. Work area and cleanup. The Amazing Remelt will absorb into porous materials and may stain. Yeah, it can stain. So I also saw people talking about how they were making lighter resin pieces and using it, and it did stain them. I wonder if it made it melt down a little bit. But yeah, so that's a thing. And like, I don't know, I guess it kind of poses the question, like, why dye it red? As far as the smell, I don't really smell anything. Maybe like a slight citrus smell, but yeah, nothing too strong. All right, so we're gonna get our molds set up and ready to have the material poured into, and then we will cut this up and microwave it and go from there. So I will get everything set up. Okay, so now we're gonna get our molds situated. So for this piece, actually a cutter would have worked. This piece goes up a little higher than a lot of my other pieces, so I was afraid that the cutter wouldn't have enough room to completely cover it, you know? But I'm still gonna go ahead and use this thing. This is just, it was a candy sprinkle container that I cut the bottom off, so that will fit around there well and have plenty of room. So I'm gonna start with that one. I'm gonna take my piece and I'm just gonna squeeze it into the clay. And I wanna use a cloth because I don't wanna get fingerprints on it. And then here the clay is a little bit higher up, and it's because the cutting on this isn't exactly flush, it's a little bit wonky. So I just needed a little bit more material to squeeze it down into to get a straighter effect, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, that's okay too, but that's what's going on there. I'm really hoping it goes okay without the mold release. I just don't have any. If this goes poorly, then I will order some mold release and try it again that way. Okay, so I'm gonna squeeze that into my clay, get a good seal so the mold material doesn't come out. There we go. I feel like if any of them are gonna have trouble with not having a mold release, it's gonna be the door. And it's just because there's just so much fine detail. All right, so we're gonna squeeze that into there. And then with the silicone piece, I can't really squeeze it in there, so I'm just gonna place it onto my clay, and that's that. I'm sure it's gonna seep under it, but it should be fine. So now I'm gonna go ahead and start to cut up my mold material. Okay, so I have a Pyrex glass, I have a cutting board, I have a knife. So now we're gonna go ahead and take the material out. We're gonna try, I don't know how to go about this. And this stuff is totally non-toxic. It is safe to touch like this. Like I said before, it's mostly glycerin and gelatin. Both of those things are technically edible. So yeah, I think you're safe handling it without gloves. All right, that's what it looks like out of the container. That's so weird. I thought it would cut cleaner than it is. I don't know. Ah! Okay, it does rip. Okay, I understand the appeal now of just melting it all at once because this is super weird. All right. So there's a chunk cut off. I mean, even being warmed by my fingers by cutting it, it's starting to feel a little bit tacky. I mean, okay, I don't think I'm gonna cut it anymore. I think that's good. But yeah, it already has like a gummy feel to it. Okay, yeah, so to spare yourself some hassle, like I do understand just melting it in the container. I think that's probably enough. So I'm gonna microwave it. I'm not gonna film that part. It's just gonna be me microwaving it for 30 seconds, stirring it, microwaving it until it's completely melted. And then I'll come back and we'll pour it and monitor how long it takes to set back up. I feel like it's not gonna stay in a liquid state for very long. So I don't know, I'm gonna handle that. I'll see you in a little bit. All right, so for this amount, it took about 45 seconds for it to completely melt down. Cool, so now we're just gonna pour them in. Pour the material into our mold boxes. It has a little bit more of a smell now. I feel like I smell the gelatin. I don't know. It has like a citrus smell. It's not bad and it's not good. It's just kind of there. I do want to say it smells a little bit like Jell-O or something. It's still staying pretty liquidy. I thought it would set up a lot quicker. Oh, it's starting to do like a stringy thing. You know what it really smells like is when you make Jell-O, if you've ever made Jell-O, when it's still liquid, you know, before it sets up. It totally smells like that. Which would make sense because there's gelatin in it. Huh, trippy. Alright, so I'm going to monitor these. I'm going to see how long it does take for it to set up. And then we're going to pop it out of the mold and see what happens. And I really do hope that having no mold release doesn't mess them up. We'll see. Alright, so I'll see you in a little while. Okay, so it's been over an hour. This stuff didn't set up nearly as quickly as I thought it would. It finally hit a point after an hour where I just put it in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes, and then I even put it in the freezer for a few minutes after that. And maybe cooling it like that will help with the fact that there's no mold release, but yeah, it took longer than traditional mold making material. So let's go ahead and pop these off and see what we got. Oh, huh. And that one, I don't know if it ripped or if I got too close to the, I don't know. All right, whatever. Okay. The detail on the door doesn't look bad, but yeah, I think I just got it too close to the cutter, you know what I mean? It feels weird. It feels gummy. There's all kinds of bubbles in it. And that was one of the complaints. I'll wait on that one. That was one of the complaints, was the bubbles. Like, reading the reviews, they're all over the place. A few people are really into this stuff, and a lot of people are not really on board with it, it seems. I didn't even think about how hard this one would be to get out. Even with traditional silicone, it's a bit of a pain in the butt. Okay, the inside has a weird texture thing happening. So I see that there's bubbles in it next to the flower. It didn't make full contact, like right there. So I don't know, we'll see. It popped out pretty clean though, like it released it pretty easily. Yeah, it let go of it really easily. These pieces are very shiny though, so that might be a factor. This one kind of fought me, but it was in this weird thing. It feels super gummy. Okay, now this is the piece I made with the silicone. Oh wow, it actually has a pretty clean line. It didn't seep under it like I thought it would. Okay, that's actually really cool. Okay, so you can use this stuff to make a mold of a piece of silicone. And then I'm going to try and I'm going to use all of these. I'm going to pour resin into them. Well, I can't use that one. But I'm going to pour resin into these ones, see what it looks like. There's a lot of bubbles. I can definitely see that. Yeah, and this one I'll pour silicone in and make like a silicone mold from it. They look pretty shiny up in it as well too. That shine transferred over. But yeah, okay, so I'm just off camera. I'm going to mix up some resin. I'm going to mix up some silicone. And I'm going to pour them in there. And then I'll be back when we pop the pieces out to see what they look like. So I will see you then. Okay, 1 second. So upon actually looking at what happened with this one, it's not that it ripped. I couldn't find the little ripped off piece. It's because it was an air bubble. Air got trapped there and it didn't make it underneath it, and that's why that piece isn't there. I looked everywhere and I could not find that little ripped piece. It's not. It's that a bubble got stuck there and the mold material never made it there, so that's what happened. It's the next day and I mixed up some resin and I filled all these up. This one got filled with silicone, like I said I was gonna do. I remade the door and I remade this dome piece because of honestly how easy it was. That was a really cool thing, was being able to take those molds that I wasn't happy with and stick them in the microwave and melt them back down. So yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So now we're gonna pop these out and just see how they did with the detail and what happened. All right, so I purposely used black so we could really see the detail. The piece was super matte, so anything that is shiny was because of the bubbles that got stuck in the mold. So it's not terrible, but it's also, there's room for improvement. Yeah, But it did pick up on some of the details really well. You know, it really got in there. But yeah, there's a lot of bubbles stuck in there. Okay, so here's one of the flowers. They're honestly releasing from the mold a lot better than I thought they would, especially without the mold release. I would go so far as to say maybe it's not completely necessary. All right, so with this one, I made it a point to use a lighter colored resin because, like I said, I read a review and it said that this stuff can actually stain the piece. It did that. It totally did that. And I think maybe the resin just warmed up a little bit and caused it to leach into it or something along those lines. But yeah, I can see like a pink kind of rim on some of these. There is a bubble right there. There's a bubble right there. It didn't do as bad as I thought it would. Is it perfect? No, but it's not terrible. Okay, so here's the bigger piece. I'm curious to see what happened with these bigger ones because it said in the directions that any like too much heat can melt it. You know what I mean? And any thickness over 1/4 of an inch can possibly melt or warp the mold, and these are definitely thicker than that. Looks good. It also has just that little tinge of red going on around the edges, but it's not bad. As far as the bubbles, there's definitely some. I mean, it's okay. Okay, this piece was pretty thick. That's not terrible. I don't think it was as perfect as the original piece that I used. There's like a weird kind of thing going on there. But yeah, I mean, it's not bad. Okay, so here's the silicone. Cool. There's a few bubbles in it, but yeah, so I just made a mold from another mold. That's really cool. That's just a lot of fun in my opinion. Final thoughts. Would I use this product again? I actually already have used this product again, and I'll be demonstrating what I did with it in the next video coming up. I didn't use it traditionally as like a mold. I used it in a different way. That'll make sense in the next video. As far as the pieces, the detail, it's not terrible. There's definitely some bubbles. This was kind of messy, but in a pinch, I think it would work. The things that you can use it for are limited, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, to be perfectly honest. Like I said before, being able to melt down these pieces and make new molds, like it's a good time. It's a good novelty, absolutely, and I'm sure, yeah, in a pinch that it can be used, it has its use. So yeah, I guess that covers everything I wanted to cover. I hope you learned a lot, and I know I certainly did. And if you like this video, please consider thumbs upping and subscribing and all those things that go with YouTube. I thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.